Welcome everyone. We have the Haslab Omega Prime. This is basically robots in disguise, or if you are into the Japanese version, the car robots, Optimus Prime and Ultra Magnus together, and basically a remake of the original robots in disguise line. So if you backed this Haslab, you should be getting this soon. Seem to have kind of uh, dropped out of nowhere. I don't remember receiving any kind of notice about, check your shipping address and all that stuff. So this is a very nice surprise because I believe they advertised this was going to be released in the fall of this year. So awesome that we're getting this now. And now that I got this and I'm thinking about it, I kind of wish I got at least two of these because, there's basically three forms here. Technically five if you count the vehicle modes. And there's just a whole lot going on. So the box is pretty big. It's a very squarish box. It's kind of large for its size. It's not the largest box you'll ever see, but it's not small by any means. And just for some scale, here's robots, not robots, well, the legacy version of Sideburn, and he's just a little dude compared to this box. Outside of that, very nice artwork. Colors look great. Lots of artwork all over the box. You get to see a little bit of Optimus and Ultra Magnus here. The bottom is the plainest part. It basically shows everything combined here. And on the back, we get to see the fully combined mode again. We get to see all the modes for Optimus and vehicle and robot mode for Ultra Magnus, and this new guy that they came up with to basically turn that big weapon into another little robot. So very cool. So let's go ahead and start opening this. And there are 4 containers. So I think this might be number 2, but this is the one that's on the top. And it's got the manual, which just slid out. It's got blue bolts. It's got the display stand. You get 2 of them. And whoops, you get Cerebros. You just fell out. Kind of weird that we are getting a G1 Fortress Maximus product. Actually, this is not G1. I think this is Titan's Returns. This is the the modern Fort Mac. So we'll take a look at that later. So there's that. We've got this smaller tray, and I think this is just the sword. Yep. So there is our matrix sword. To me, this is the master sword because it went to Fortress Maximus. Then we've got the smaller of the two bottom boxes, and this is Ultra Magnus. So there is his little shiny chest plate and the shiny gold antenna for Optimus, or for Omega Prime. Forgot what they call him. And then that's Magnus. He's not like tied down or anything. Just very easy to pull this guy out, and you're gonna have to transform, add the front end on here. But I like that they shipped it this way to minimize any type of, paint scraping and all that stuff. So cool for them to do that. And then we know this is Optimus because this is the last box. So he's laid out like this. This top tray has his silver antenna. And similar to Ultra Magnus, you can just pull him out the box, no ties or twist ties or anything like that. He's got a little bit of plastic on him to keep him in good condition. And his gun is all the way down at the bottom of the box. And that's kind of it. So let's start taking these guys out and taking a look at them. Okay, so here is everything out of the box. And before we go too deep on reviewing different modes, there's a few things you got to put together. So the matrix sword, it is sectional. I don't know if it's meant to be sectional by design, but it is. It takes a little effort to take it apart, so probably maybe shouldn't. But I know this all comes apart very easily. So just kind of be aware that this does come apart, and you will obviously have to put it together. And I don't think it matters which way you do it. It's kind of the sword is kind of a mirror as far as the way the parts are laid out. So just pick a side and start putting it all together. You can only get the handle in one particular way. You can't turn it in any other way, so it's going to slot in very specifically. And then the sword is done. And it is a huge, huge, huge sword. All right, so we'll put this out of the way for now. We'll talk about the stand just really quick. So there's a couple way to use these. You can use them as a actual figure stand. And as you see, you just kind of put it together. There's these pieces that go on the front. And the reason why this is modular, because you also have these little pieces you can put on, is you can put the two together and have one giant stand, or pretend that this is the space bridge. This is how they would travel across the city, like underneath the city. I think if I remember that correctly. So the stands are dual usage. They can be a literal stand, or it can be a, kind of like a background piece. So that's that. And then we've got Cerebros, and he's got a little chair, even a place for his feet, and he can just sit in the ladder chair here. So that's kind of cool. And then we get these pieces. I think these go to our guy here. So basically, these are, you're going to use these in the gun mode for storage. Yeah, he's got some storage in the back, so we can just plug those in the back here. So that's his complete robot look. And then Optimus, you need to install his antenna, and these are identical, so it doesn't matter which side you put these on. And then that completes that look. And in the gun, you store in the front, just like the original toy. If I can remember how to do this. Yeah, there's a slot you have to slide this into. It goes in pretty easily. It's difficult to do this with a camera in front of me, but it's pretty easy to do. So that completes Optimus. And then we've got the Omega Prime ears, antennas, and then we've got the front of the truck. And basically, this piece, you basically snap the Autobot logo onto it. It's not really any more complicated than that. There's some tabs on the underside here, so you can kind of see what that looks like. Just tab it in. Probably good to look at this from the underside so you can follow the tabs a little bit better. And getting this like past this, kind of sliding it into this little groove area all the way is going to help you. Just trying to like stick it on straight, you're going to discover that you're not going to be able to get this in all the way. So let me try to demonstrate this again. So if you just put it straight on, you're going to have a problem. So go ahead and get this piece all the way flush and then kind of like rock it in. And it goes in perfectly. All right, and it does tab. There's a slot and a tab, so just kind of work that. And it's not a deep tab, so it shouldn't take much effort to tab it on. So there's that look. And then somewhere in here is Omega Prime's head. I don't know if we got to take this guy all the way apart to get to it. So the head is in the front here, and these are not going to pull up and out the way very easily, but you can kind of flex it, I guess. The longer part goes towards the back, and I'd go ahead and point it down because that's the way it needs to be in this configuration. And it might be better to do this, when you're in the mode that he needs to be in. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to put it on here. But you get the idea. You can slide his head out and put the antenna on. Again, doing this without a camera in front of me was a little bit easier, but just kind of pop them on and then you can slide the head back in, maybe. And there you go. And now Ultra Magnus's look is completed. And some collector advice when you're dealing with chrome stuff. I don't know why this is a thing, but chromed, electroplated plastic, touching it a lot, especially with oily hands, you can like permanently leave fingerprints on them over time. So after I finish messing with them, I usually take uh like t-shirt or like a rag you'd use to like clean your eyeglasses, and I just kind of rub off the chrome just to try to make it last a little bit longer. All right. So the vehicle modes are pretty nice. These, yeah, this is pretty amazing. Um, Again, here is Legacy Sideburn, just for some scale. These are more or less the same size as the originals. There's definitely a lot more refinement. One thing is that we don't have firing missiles, which I'm fine with because they're kind of annoying on the sky. Like they would fire off very easily. I mean, it's fun to have the effect, but uh, in practicality, if you're not like on purpose trying to fire them, it's kind of a nuisance. Um, Still have a lot of the same features. You've got this. Basically, it's supposed to be like a water hose. You can pretend they're guns. It's a toy, but this moves, and let's see. This does open, although okay, yeah, this does open up. This is more for the base mode, but that part opens. The ladder does turn. The ratchets are very tight. I don't know if the mic is picking it up, but it's kind of scary. Like it's like pop, pop, pop. That's the only thing that's a little worrisome, but it's going to add strength to the ratchet. I guess why that's why they did it, but again, it's a little scary. And I do like the clear plastic on the original was kind of had like a greenish tint. This is much deeper blue, so I like that. And there's no rubber wheels, it's plastic wheels. And I know a lot of people there. Well, I'm gonna say there's some people that are very much like they want to have rubber wheels, but collecting these things for as long as I have, that can be problematic because the rubber degrades over time and it's like hit or miss. Like for some people, the tires will peel, they'll break apart, they'll split open. For some people, they never have a problem. And then just like dust getting on rubber is really hard to clean. And if you try to put any type of solvent like alcohol or anything, you're just gonna like strip the material away. Um, Same thing on this guy. Tires are plastic, but they all look good. And he does have practical storage. So you can, we'll pretend he's in car mode, but you can put cars on him just like an Ultra Magnus should work. And there's little tabs that, hold everything together when you close them back up. So he's got the playability, functionality, and there's still a structure to keep it very together. So I like that too. All right, so vehicle modes. Now we'll move on to robot mode. Here they both are in robot mode. So one thing you'll notice right away is Optimus is quite wide now. um, and this is mostly because he has been engineered to be able to support the super mode and the omega mode. So he's going to have that problem to his look. We'll compare him with the original in just a moment, but that's one slightly negative thing about this setup. Ultra Magnus, he's still Ultra Magnus as far as, he's kind of like, his purpose is to be a combiner. So, he's still got the hollowness of the original, although you can take blue bolts, you can take them apart. His torso will fill in this area, his feet can fill in the back areas. The arms, they can be guns. So that's, one thing that kind of carries over. And then he still has the gimmick from the original toy where you can plug him into the chest. Let's see if I can get this situated properly. There. Okay, but you can plug him into his chest, and then you can simulate, he's basically got this Gatling gun, which is like a whole thing in the cartoon. Little fact, the Japanese version, when he was in this mode, you would see like shells like spinning off the turrets. When they brought this over to America and played it on Fox Kids, I don't know if they cut the scenes out or they redid the scenes, but there was a whole thing about that. And speaking of that, I was introduced to robots in disguise as the Japanese version, the car robots. And I discovered it through TFW 2005. I was back when Napster was still a thing, and it had become a kind of a cultural thing to download stuff off the internet. And I was mostly watching, like, my first exposure to it was Japanese. No subtitles, just you got to just understand the context and kind of figure it out. But yeah, and then when eventually, I think it took like maybe a year before it came to the US, and was pretty surprised at the voice acting. I didn't like it that much. It's kind of weird. And I found out years later how much editing they had to do. But anyway, just cool little fact there. All right. And then for some additional scale, here is Sideburn. And he's kind of small, or you could say he's kind of big. I think the original Sideburn was a bit bigger than this, maybe like 2 or 3 heads taller. So just something to be aware of. And for a little bit more scale, here is Studio 86 Optimus. And he towers over Optimus. This version of Optimus. I mean, not by a whole bunch, but he's just like huge. This is professional bodybuilder Optimus Prime versus heroic warrior who works out quite often. But this guy, he's definitely on gear. Again, they did this to beef up the super modes. So it would be nice to have a version of this guy that was kind of closer to this scale. I doubt Hasbro would do that, and I don't even know how they would manage to do that and integrate the fire truck portion still. Or maybe they make a version that's just a fire truck, basically make something similar to Galaxy Upgrade Optimus. But that's just one little thing that's disappointing. But I plan on keeping him in some kind of super mode, probably the Omega mode. So that's not a big deal to me. Okay, and then we'll do some quick comparisons with the original just to see how these play out. So you'll notice a pretty big size difference in the two. And again, this guy was kind of beefy, but our new one is bigger because of the supporting structure. There's a lot of little differences. This is not like a one-for-one remake, but there are a lot of similar design elements going on. The new one's quite more angular. The old one is quite more like round. There's lots of square areas, but the forearms, the thighs, they got more of this round look to them. And I don't know this as a fact, but I know this looked very similar to Gridman back during that time. So, yeah, I can't remember if the first Gridman came before or after this. I think it came before this. So I just know, they were kind of going for that look, And then the difference between the chrome and no chrome here, I don't mind the chrome. Chrome is kind of a touchy thing because it looks great, but it can chip, it can pick up fingerprints that don't go away. Sometimes it can make the plastic brittle. So there's some caveats to chrome and not using chrome. And then, this guy has electronics, this one doesn't. So that's allowed him to have a little bit smaller backpack. Not by too much, because there are some clever things going on. For instance, there's this armature, and I'll just demonstrate this real quick if I can. But as you put him into Omega mode and believe the super mode, this tucks in to reinforce the waist area. So that piece hanging off is there just to be able to do that, and it ends up making a big difference for the Omega mode. Okay, so that's Optimus, and then Ultra Magnus. Definitely cleaner, not as busy as this guy. He's got a lot of surface detailing. We've got the Autobot crest painted on this guy when this one doesn't. The spread of the wings is wider, so that's kind of cool. Um, the plastic, I don't know if they used nylon or this is just like the color they used, but you got this kind of stark white over here and you've got kind of this off white over here. I did notice as I was transforming him that some of the gray has yellowed just a little bit. So just something interesting, just kind of comparing these two. But this is definitely meant to be more like show accurate with the white painted face. This one's got the silver painted face, so some pretty big differences between these guys. Like overall design element is the same, but like just look at it. Like whereas the biceps are really busy here, the forearms are much more busier here with the surface detail. But like mostly surface detail is kind of pared down on the new version quite a bit. And then talked about this earlier, but there are ways to use these displays. So there's holes facing the front on Ultra Magnus. So he kind of pegs in like that, I believe. Might be doing it wrong, but something like that. They also stand pretty well on their own, so they don't need the stands at all, in my opinion. I think they'll end up doing a lot better as kind of a diorama. And then you can simulate that whole thing in the show where they, you know, kind of got into the space bridge thing and traveled that way. So those are the base modes. I'm going to get this guy into his super mode so we can look at that real quick. So here is the super mode for Optimus. And he is still rather stocky for this mode. But he is very secure. And the cool thing is his ladder hangs very well for him. And they engineered this whole thing so that he can properly sling the ladder over his shoulder. And this is pretty heavy and it's really pulling forward on him, but because of the way this thing is engineered, he can hold on to it. So that's pretty nice. That is what, you know, one of the improvements they came up with. Another thing is that he doesn't have to extend like the original did, the centerpiece. So we'll bring the original in, and there's this whole thing going on where the chest has to basically extend along this point. And for the new version, that doesn't come in play, which is interesting because he does telescope. They only have him telescope once for the Omega mode, but there's a second telescope notch, and I don't know what that's for. Maybe that's something to do with the secret fan mode. I don't know. But I thought that was pretty cool. And then one thing I liked to do with the original is put his pistol on his shoulder. And you don't have a uh, port here. You do have some ports on the side. So if you wanted to put that there, you could. He still has the forearm blasters like the original had. Yeah, he's a bit stocky in this mode too. Like you can tell he's definitely going to be better looking in Omega mode. Like that's really where he's meant to shine. Um, so there's Sideburn, so you can see him. And here is Optimus, so you can see him. And here is Ultra Magnus. And Ultra Magnus is still taller than him in this mode. Yeah, it kind of seems like he's supposed to telescope a little bit here. Yeah, I think the instructions are wrong. So I increased it to the one notch that they tell you to use for Omega Prime. And this piece lines up a lot better with the crotch now. And he's a teeny bit taller than Ultra Magnus. And he looks more proportional now, too. So just be aware of that. The instructions leave that off. He does need a telescope, and you should get this piece pointed inward for support, just like you have to with the Omega mode. And then that also means, yeah, and now his ladder can fully be, I don't know how to describe it, but you saw what I did. I had this flipped up, and now I can flip it down, and it has clearance. So there you go. Be aware of that when you're messing with yours. So let's move on to the Omega mode. And here he is in his final form as Omega Prime. And this guy is chunky and sturdy, surprisingly sturdy. But that was the whole design reason for this figure. It took away from the smaller Optimus. It definitely improved the, Super Optimus, but this is where it really shines. Just the amount of stability, posability. You will not find another like this is the reason for this figure. Like maybe even to a fault. But yeah, the super mode is definitely the thing that shines with this figure. Also, there are a lot of reinforcing things going on with the figure in this mode. Like you can tell they really took some care. I mean, like everything is tabbed. Like there's just so many things that are tabbed in place along the back and between all the different bots. You can take this and put it on the top, just like the original. Yeah, just amazing. And just to compare him real quick with the original, I guess we're going to call this vintage now. Um, I've got the knees kind of bent back, kind of that an exaggerated anime style, just to kind of help with the stability. But this guy never was very stable in this mode. He definitely wants to lean a lot. And even posing and standing this guy up right now is kind of tricky. I just realized I'm missing a missile for him. Yeah. I mean, this guy isn't bad by any means. Like as far as like an overall design, engineering is what I meant to say. But it like it's very much a balancing act getting it into this mode. And the designer, you could tell, kind of shared the sacrifice between all the modes. Maybe the fire truck mode is probably the most solid form to all this. Definitely, once you get into this mode, you're kind of on shaky ground. Whereas this, okay, so now you've got like this way better super mode, but that smaller Optimus, he's just like a bulky beast now. He's almost like a gorilla robot, so to speak. So you can't get it all. Like you can't get this and get a really nice inner robot. But that said, um, I'm enjoying this. This guy, I don't ever touch because I'm just afraid like it's gonna break. The materials are a lot better. You got a lot more ratchets with this, and more likely I'm going to put him back into his individual modes, the smaller modes, and kind of keep him displayed that way so I don't have to worry about any stress on the joints and things like that over time. So that is that for that comparison. And so he does have the Matrix sword, a Mega sword. I forgot what this thing is supposed to be called again. And he can hold it. And he's got some grooves inside the hand. And there are some grooves here on the inner part. And just line it up. and I'm not really lining it up here, but you line it up and he'll hold the sword very well. One thing is that to use this locking system, you're forced to have the sword facing forward instead of like in a cutting motion. So if you want him to hold it in a cutting style, you're not going to get any reinforcement. So that's unfortunate. And he'll be able to hold it like that, but he's not really. This is not the way he's designed to hold it, and it is going to put. The arm cannot hold the sword in that way, as far as like the way it's built, because uh, there's no ratchet in the bicep. There is a ratchet in the shoulder going up and down, but not back and forth. It is pretty tight going back and forth, but I would argue that probably not ever going to try to like play with him like that. Like, I think most people who collect these things, like, we pick them up, we mess with them a little bit, we pose them. Maybe some people take photographs, but people aren't like actively like playing with them, like, you know, going into that place as a child where you can just like zone out and like play with toys. You're not doing that more than likely. So it's all about getting a good pose that he can stick in, and he will most definitely be able to hold this, in any orientation, because even though it's not locked in his hand, it's not going anywhere either, because the staff only goes so far. So you're gonna be able to get him into a pose that you like, and leave him that way. You can even get him into some cool action poses, but you're probably not going to ever get him in a pose where he's doing something like this safely with the sword, unless you're doing something with the other hand to try to balance it. See, that works, um, but just something to be mindful of. Like, once you realize this little thing with how the gears work, it's like, oh, that's interesting. But this is definitely designed in a way to be as sturdy as possible. I guess that's the best way to look at it. And then to talk about his counterpart a little bit, since this is modern legacy generations Omega Prime, we're going to talk about legacy generations style Fortress. So these guys aren't going to get a one shot together. This is the Takara version of Fortress. But I did want to kind of compare the swords. Whoops. They are definitely not the same sword by any means. The Fortress sword is a bit bigger, but the uh, guard is smaller than this guy. And this guy is quite a bit thicker, like plastic material is quite a bit thicker. And because this is engineered for Fortress, um, it's going to be difficult for him to hold this, which that probably shouldn't be the goal anyway. But I did find it interesting that they used this guy, and I do believe this is the headmaster that they used. So I did want to show that off real quick. And yeah, that is the same headmaster. So if you got the Brave Maximus release of Fortress, he's probably going to be closer to the color scheme of the Robots in Disguise Fortress. Uh, that Fortress was red with kind of blue accents, red, black, blue, and Grand Maximus is more black, red. So, now that they've re-released this, they re-released the Hasbro Fortress. I wonder if they're going to re-release the Brave Maximus. Probably not, but it would be super, super cool if they did. I guess never say never. And we know that there is a fan mode for adding this guy. We still don't know what that fan mode is. I'm not even going to attempt to try to figure out. There's just a lot going on. um, it would probably take me like hours and hours to try to figure it out, and maybe I'd get it right, maybe I wouldn't. Who knows? But Hasbro did say once these start hitting, they're supposed to do some kind of video, maybe their version of an unboxing video or something, and they are going to talk about the fan mode, which they say is formally supported by the design. It's not just something that you're just like laying parts on him. Like there's something about this setup where it will like plug in and work. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. So that's the review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you ordered one, it's probably on the way to you. If you didn't order one, um, yeah, there's going to be eBay, maybe a few retailers, maybe a few retailers will end up putting some up for sale. Like usual suspects will be like Big Bad Toy Store. They'll throw like $100 or $200 on top of the retail price. So if you didn't get a chance to order it, there might be a chance you can get one without like scalper fees. So there's that. Thanks for watching. As always, tune into more videos coming up. And if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you.